By 1984, approximately 7 million American children between ages 5 and 13 were regularly unsupervised after school. These young minds came home to empty houses, let themselves in with keys strung around their necks, prepared their own snacks, completed homework alone, and waited. This was not negligence in the traditional sense, but a massive social experiment conducted on an entire generation born roughly between 1965 and 1980. The phenomenon created what researchers call a high contingency environment, where actions and outcomes were directly linked without buffer time. Young brains learned to predict consequences in real time, establishing neural pathways for anticipatory thinking that persist into adulthood. When parental figures eventually arrived home, expectations were absolute and consequences immediate. There was no negotiation, no processing of feelings. A 2004 marketing study concluded these children went through their all-important formative years as one of the least parented, least nurtured generations in U.S. history. This created an internal framework where personal accountability became deeply embedded. Cognitive psychologists note that such environments produce individuals who habitually think several steps ahead, calculating potential outcomes before taking action. The empty house did more than build resourcefulness. It fundamentally altered how an entire cohort processes risk, trust, and emotional vulnerability. The children who came home to empty houses also witnessed the systematic dismantling of every promise their parents made about how the world worked. Divorce rates peaked during the 1980s. Generational researchers documented a cultural shift where the long-held societal value of staying together for the sake of the children was replaced with parental self-actualization. Young observers watched parents give everything to companies only to receive layoff notices during the next restructuring cycle. Psychologists identify a cognitive strategy that emerged from this environment called defensive pessimism. This approach involves setting deliberately low expectations while thoroughly preparing for potential negative outcomes. Research demonstrated something counterintuitive. When defensive pessimists were encouraged to think positively, their performance actually declined. The strategy works precisely because anxious preparation transforms into productive action. These individuals do not expect failure because they are damaged or cynical. They expect it because experience taught them that preparation matters more than optimism. Approximately 70% of marriages that began in the 1990s reached their 15th anniversary. This suggests that those who witnessed marital collapse often responded by deliberately building stronger partnerships themselves. Nuclear anxiety research conducted during the 1980s revealed something disturbing about childhood development under existential threat. Studies found that children ranked fear of nuclear holocaust second only to losing their parents. The constant presence of annihilation as a background possibility created a peculiar psychological adaptation, the ability to hold two contradictory ideas simultaneously. Teachers discussed nuclear war matter-of-factly, while insisting students should not worry. Duck-and-cover drills taught children to hide under desks as though wooden furniture could provide protection from thermonuclear weapons. The absurdity was not lost on young minds. Research documents that many young people developed what scholars described as fatalism, believing nuclear war was inevitable. Children should not be left alone with their fears, yet that is precisely what happened. This environment produced a distinctive psychological response: ironic detachment. When adults behave as though everything might end tomorrow while simultaneously demanding normal behavior, humor becomes survival mechanism. The cultural output of this period reflects this adaptation. Grunge lyrics addressed social alienation, despair, and apathy. Distance became armor. Sarcasm became connection. Before instant answers existed, knowledge had physical cost. Hours spent in libraries, hunting through card catalog drawers for a single book that might contain needed information, created a fundamentally different relationship with learning. Cognitive psychologists describe this phenomenon as deeper encoding. Research demonstrated that information requiring effort to obtain becomes more permanently integrated into memory. When a bicycle chain slipped, there was no tutorial. The bike went upside down, hands got covered in grease, and the problem got solved through direct engagement with physical reality. This built mechanical intuition. The work ethic that emerged from this environment was forged through early employment that seems archaic by contemporary standards. Paper routes requiring pre-dawn waking, grocery bagging, fast food registers requiring mental calculation when machines failed. Research from workplace studies indicates this generation values competence over credentials, demonstrated skill over hierarchical position. They watched incompetent authority figures make terrible decisions throughout childhood. The relationship between privacy and safety was learned through direct experience during an era when mistakes stayed local. When something embarrassing happened, perhaps a handful of people knew, and the incident faded into memory. There were no smartphones, no viral videos, no permanent digital record. This created a psychological framework where exposure equals danger. The instinct to remain invisible is not technological incompetence. This generation built the internet itself, creating the very platforms they now approach with caution. They understand exactly how these systems work, which is precisely why they distrust them. Research found that younger generations, despite expressing privacy concerns, demonstrate higher rates of social media account hacking, online scams, and identity theft than their predecessors. They gave their own children the attention they never received, creating constant supervision and documentation. Now they watch those children grow up visible in ways that feel fundamentally unsafe. They occupy a unique position in human history, the last cohort that truly understands what it means to be alone with your thoughts, to be genuinely bored, to solve problems without searching for answers. Bridges do not receive much attention. They simply stand there, doing the work, holding things together, expecting nothing in return. As we've seen throughout this exploration, the landscape of 1980s was uniquely formative for an entire generation, a time marked by both economic uncertainty and the looming shadow of global conflict. We've traced how unsupervised afternoons, high divorce rates, and the ever-present threat of nuclear war fostered resilience through defensive pessimism and a surprising capacity for ironic detachment. It's fascinating to consider how these experiences, coupled with limited digital exposure, shaped their perspectives and approach to the world. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this look back, please leave a like and share your own memories or insights from that era in the comments below.